Hi. Fine that you made the effort to come here, and welcome, Mr. Sandro Veronesi. Big applause to get this started. Yeah.
Thank you.
One important thing already at the end of this interview, you'll be able to ask a few questions if you want to, and Mr. Veronesi will be signing books, and that'll be in the foyer here in the KVS. We are here at the Passaporta Festival. Honored to be in your company, Mr. Veronesi. In the course of the last days and weeks, I got really nervous. You know why? Because if they asked me, what are you going to do this weekend? I said, I'm going to have a conversation with Sandro Veronesi. Everybody said, wow. I met so many fans of you. Are you aware of the fact that your books, not only in Italy, but far beyond, mean a lot to a lot of people? He's lost in translation.
No, it's a pleasure, but I normally don't touch this. I can have some information just like this that gives me happiness, but it's not a social job. Writing, you write alone, you send your manuscript, and then sometimes you go presentation, you go signing, but I don't have any real information about how much some readers can love my work, and it's fair. It's fair because you have to keep separate. It's better that I don't know that.
Really?
Yes, it's better because I always have to think that, there is something written here. I don't know where. The coast. You are supposed to pay. Mm-hmm. And this is probably the most important thing that I have to take care of. People pay to read this book. So I have to pay attention to give the best I can without thinking that people already love me, because each time it's starting it again from
fresh
zero.
start. Yeah.
Because if there was a form of discount, you do love my work a lot, you pay less. I can consider this, but since it doesn't matter, you can love my previous books how much you want, you have to pay the full price. So I have to put the full engagement without thinking about my narcissistic gratification.
Yeah. And also to stand, not writing the same book again and again.
Oh, this is very difficult because normally writers write the same book again and again. There are writers that, just like me, change the settings, change the time, changes the plot, the story, but the book is always the same.
What is your book, Mr. Veronesi?
This one?
No, all your books. What is the one theme or the one book of all your books?
Since 25 years, I put at the beginning of my books, mm-hmm. Always the same quotation by Samuel Beckett. Always the same.
I can't go on.
I can't go on, I'll go on. Mm-hmm. I write about that form of heroism that is expected in everybody's life. Everybody has to pass through a moment just like that. And I'm interested and fascinated by this form of heroism. I can't go on, I'll go on. I'm writing always the same book, changing. I had the privilege of knowing all the old Italian writers of the 20th century, mm-hmm. Before they died. Alberto Moravia, he wrote always the same book without changing anything. And he was, of course, he theoretically wanted to do that. The repetition was the form of art he privileged, because even if he had the age of my grandfather, he was more modern than me, more contemporary than me, and he belonged to the avant-garde and the experimentalism, the Dadaism, and I didn't. So he had to teach to me how to be modern. And of course, Andy Warhol or John Cage, they put art forward by repeating always or almost always the same idea. I understood by talking with Moravia, by discovering this in the work of elder people, that I was postmodernist. And I was not contemporary but postmodernist, because I use different languages, and I don't share this faith in repetition. But that doesn't mean that I change my novel. My novel is always the same.
Yeah. And does that mean that you're actively thinking about building an oeuvre? When you're writing this, Black September, are you considering where does this fits into my bigger work?
In this case, yes. It's the first time I did this, but this is because I think of two reasons. The first reason is my age. Now I'm thinking to put order in what already passed. I didn't until the moment I discovered that more than 2/3 of my life are gone. But the second and probably most important reason is that for the first time, this book, this novel, assaulted me, literally, during a journey, a car trip from Tuscany to Rome, let's say 3 hours driving. I don't remember even why. Probably I heard to the radio, to the news, some commemoration of the Black September affair at the Olympics in München, probably. I started thinking and inventing this story. I was actually working on another project, and I was not. I just started, and I was convinced that that was my next novel. But when I arrived in Rome after 3 hours, the novel was ready with the title, everything. So it was not the matter of what was the novel. The novel was there. The matter was, the first question is it written by someone else, and I don't remember if this is an old novel I read, and now it's probably one of the solution. I thought this could be the first answer, so I start detecting the web if there was something like that, and there wasn't. And then I have to switch or not to the new. That was not an idea, it was a novel. It seemed to me, yes. But at that very moment, I made the question, yes, but where and how this novel can go inside with the other books. Because normally when I write a novel, I don't have a precise idea of what the novel is. It comes while writing. In this case, I had the conviction that it was already made. So I had the possibility of judging if it was worthwhile for me writing this or not. Not for commercial reasons, but as you told me, to put this together with other. And I answered yes, it's mine. Not not only because I thought about it, but because the the main thing is always the same. I can't go on, I'll
I'll
go
go
on.
on.
And because just like the other project that I abandoned, it it respected my will to escape present time.
Yeah.
For the first time in my life, I wrote and published a novel that is not set in the same time I was writing, but 50 years before. 50 years is a long time. It's the time between Tolstoy writing War and Peace and the time of War and Peace. It's half a century. So it's an historical novel. And this was the same choice I have made with the other that I let, that was set 40 years ago, because I wanted to escape the present. Because I don't like and I don't understand exactly what's happening.
Nobody does.
Yeah. And in this case, if you don't know what the mechanism of the characters you invent, you cannot really control and manage anything. So the real answer was yes, because it was just like the other, a novel, a story that took place in another time, not the time I was living, because I just have to live just like you. I have to live the present time. But writing a novel set in present time is just like living present time twice, and it's too much.
It's horrible. Yeah. And now we can live in the year 72 because we might just, for those who haven't read it yet, we're so happy that you spend time in 72 because then we can too. I wasn't born. Almost. We follow the family of Gigio Bellandi. He's a youngster, well, he's a child. He's on the verge of becoming an adolescent. That's an important moment in one's life, and there will be a rupture. You can feel that from the beginning. Well, you tell us everything from the beginning, but you don't tell it. That's one of the big assets of this novel. He experiences one of these summers that we all experience. They're endless. There are childhood summers by the seaside. It seems like there's no end and everything is good. There's a special kind of heat. There's a special kind of smell. He has an Irish mother and he has an Italian father. He has a sister, a wonderful sister. Do I say Gilda in Italian?
Gilda.
Gilda. And there's the background, of course, of the Olympics in 72 and the terrible things that happened there. It was so Italian, but at the same time, it wasn't. As I say, yeah, we've all spent these summers. Where do they go to? And what is that special place by the seaside?
Yes, I agree. It could take place wherever, because the real place is a mental place, is the border between childhood and adolescence. This is a place that exists wherever.
Yeah.
It is not autobiographical, but I thought that I didn't think. It assaulted me that way. And then I understood what was the model. So why it assaulted me with this strange composition? Because for 7/8 of the story, you are following this, let's say, teenage or pre-teenage, 12 and a half years old, in the moment of his maturation, of his first love, of his discovering of the world. That is a sort of mandatory exercise for almost all writers, and you have dozens of masterpieces from Turgenev to Moravia with this kind of character and with this kind of story. But the last eighth, it was different. It's something really tough
Yeah.
has had to happen. And the model of this I discovered because, of course, I make lessons on it, is The Dead by James Joyce. But The Dead is not a novel. It's a story,
Short story.
a long short story. And it's exactly composed that way. 7/8, it is a description of this party, this Christmas party in Dublin, with all people and the aunts of Gabriel, and dancing and eating and discussing and everything. And in the final 8, there are the dead. The dead come and destroy everything because they dominate, not the living people, but the dead. And it's a wonderful, probably
Yes.
the best short story I ever read. And it is so strange that I made lessons about that in the lectures and lessons dedicated to the dead. And once I was composing involuntarily by driving a novel, I composed this that way. But it was a novel. That means longer.
Yeah.
That means
Because you say that that is a long short story, but still it is very dense and it's a short story. This is a novel.
There was the risk of being boring,
I have to say, you weren't.
not
But when
being Joyce.
You neither. But when I started reading it, I thought, whoa, can he pull this off? Will he manage? Because he tells us from the beginning, something will happen. Something will happen. And it's 7/8 of the novel. Did you ever doubt yourself? Can I keep the reader with all these details until it's there?
Yes, I thought that differently than the dead. I had to handle with a voice that was captivating,
Yeah,
that
good boy.
was friendly and intimate with the reader. And I decided that the voice was the one of Gigio Bellandi now. Having, of course, if he now is telling the story, that means that he's not dead, and probably he overcome the story, the problem. He is able to talk about this tough, terrible thing, because in the rest of his life, he passed over, he break through. And this is a convention. When you read something that is written by an old man regarding his childhood, you know that his life is not finished at
He's
the
still
end
there.
of the story. So this can give the possibility of introducing his voice just like a friendly voice, because I was afraid of being boring in the description of this passage, because from childhood to adolescence, because that's true that it is a mandatory exercise, but just for this, it has been perfectly made by all those great authors that the comparison could destroy me.
Did you feel them watching you over your shoulder?
No, but I thought
I have to do.
I have to give the maximum just to bring readers until the last 8, you know, and the maximum was building this frame, and I decided to build the frame I knew. So I sat in the part of Versilia, northern Tuscany shore, where at that age I was doing my holidays. Not because there there's something specific. There isn't. There's the landscape, of course, but wherever you have a landscape. But because it was the theater of fresh memories for me, and as I told you, it's an historical novel. You have to find sources. I had sources because my father, Super 8 films, the photographs, and someone else's memories of my family, of my old friends, they were sources just to recreate the frame, because for me it was important to recreate the exact frame, just like James Joyce does with the Dublin party, Christmas party, because that has to be destroyed by what is announced to happen
At the end.
at the end.
Yeah.
But I had to be very precise, and these can create a misunderstanding about nostalgia.
Yeah, because there will be people here who were already 12 in 72, but there are people who are 20 now who weren't born in 72, didn't have these summer, don't have this idea, don't recognize a lot of the things that are there, the details, but they would want to have to read it too.
Yeah, I while writing, I thought much more to the young people, my sons who don't know, even that didn't even see the place, don't know of nothing about that time, than talking to people who know.
What it was like.
I was thinking that it was for them, the youngest readers, that I had to be precise. That is something that is very different from nostalgia. There's no nostalgia because the voice is the one of the guy who has to suffer a lot. You cannot be nostalgic.
Still,
of
people will
something.
feel like it's nostalgic, or they will talk to you about nostalgia, right?
No, for me, it's okay if the reader brings his own nostalgia
Okay.
from home and find it in. It's normal. There are books where you bring something from your home and you find room to put it, and they are masterpieces. So I'm not against nostalgia, but this is
not.
not carrying my nostalgia. For example, I paid attention not to be nostalgic. The female teenager that is the other main character of the book, she's 13, and she's a pop music fan. Differently from the Gigio, who doesn't know anything about pop music. She is already a pop music fan. So she has a lot of records, and she has a lot of idols. And I also, at that time, I was 13, just like her, and I had my idols. But I didn't choose my idols.
Okay.
I remember that girls went crazy for David Bowie.
You
I
don't
didn't
understand that?
I was a little scared. David Bowie.
You missed out a lot.
I was thinking that I was not going in the right direction to be loved by them, because I was so different. So I put David Bowie inside as the main idol, and then other musicians that at the age I didn't listen to, Joe Cocker or Procol Harum. Of course, I knew them, but at that age, and the eldest here, they can remember, music was expensive. You have to choose. If you want to buy records, you have to choose between Bob Dylan and Elton John. You couldn't listen to both.
It's not a difficult choice.
Sorry?
No, it's...
I had to choose, and not being nostalgic, I decided that Esther, the girl, had different idols than me. But anyway, I will cross somebody who was 13, 14, 15 years old at that time, whose idols was David Bowie and Joe Cocker, who can easily find a nostalgic sense in the description of those times. And that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so we leave the nostalgia behind, but still there is this longing, if you read it, for a world long lost. You talk about choosing between two records you can buy. Now you go like this, and you have everything, the whole world. In this novel, you have to search for the right to follow the Olympics on the radio. There's the first time your main character Gigio sees color television. You know, all these things are always everywhere. We have everything. So you say, I go back in time, but it says a lot about today too, right?
This is one of the reasons I wouldn't like to write another novel set in contemporary times. I wanted to be free to choose. Since now you have to face media and way of communications that are not studied enough. I don't know you, but I discovered that by texting WhatsApp with my sons, adolescent, if you put the dot at the end,
You're aggressive.
you are angry. You are. I didn't know. Comma and dots for me, they are normals. For them, they are not normals. So I discovered it, but I didn't have any time to reflect about it because probably there is a truth or something, but we don't have even the time to think about that. And you have to learn not to put a dot, because if you put a dot, this is just like being furious. And there are thousands of things like that in contemporary times. 50 years ago, it was not this way. And what I wanted to point out, that it's the same now. The first love, as I told you,
Yeah.
it's a mandatory exercise. You have it in 19th century too. It's clearer. It's more distinguished. It's more defined. Without the rumor of the abundance, you know. So I still don't feel having enough instruments to face another time, abundance, to pass through it and go to the goal. No, I read a wonderful novel recently. It's the Bee Day, or the Day of the Bee, by John Murray, Paul Murray, an Irish writer, and he's able to pass through everything, text and WhatsApp and Instagram, and writing a true traditional great novel. And it's the first time I find somebody humble enough to accept contemporary times, but able enough to switch from one to another of these incomprehensible media, just to go on with his story. And fortunately, I see that it's an international success. So probably this can represent a turning point for all of us. But I read it now. I wrote the novel 3 years and 2 years and 1 year ago.
So you talk about the dots and the commas. Let's talk about words, because Gigio's mother is Irish. His father is Italian, so that means he's bilingual. His object of desire, the girl he longs for, she studied English in the summer, and she tries to understand all these lyrics in the songs she likes. And this is a way for him to get nearer to her. And he's good at it. He doesn't know he's good at it, but he can translate and he can explain her what the song is. She really wants to know, what is it about? And he can tell her. And one of the very powerful, it is about language, of course. The whole book is about language too. One of the really powerful ideas in this novel is for me that this young guy, who is 12, and she hangs around with these guys who already have some chest hair, and he doesn't. But he can win her because he's good with words. But he discovers it. And he discovers it as he's explaining it. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. He doesn't know that he has this feeling for language. But as he reads it and he explains her, then he discovers, I can do this. I do understand it. By doing it, that's magical.
I remember translating this in my experience. That what it was not the experience of being bilingual, because I'm not. But when you discover yourself, you discover all your talents. You didn't know that you were talented or gifted for something, and you discover it just on the spot. You never thought before you were able to do something. And I write something in the novel that comes from my previous work on the gospel, on the St. Mark's gospel. That is very narrative gospel. There's not so much speech by Jesus, but miracles, exorcisms. And it is clear there that when Jesus came back to Nazareth, that is his own hometown, he fails because people know him and they don't trust him. They say, "Oh, you are the son of Joseph. What do you want here? Do you want to teach us something?" "No, I know you. I know your family." And he fails. And he, for the first and only time in the whole gospel, he was wondering everybody else with his acts and miracles. Now he is surprised by this effect because he didn't predict this. But in the same moment, he's surprised. He teaches others, the disciples, look, nemo profeta in patria. You are not a prophet in your homeland. Immediately, he learned and taught the same. And this is the full experience of becoming yourself. When you, at the same time, are called to understand, but also to teach something. This is the radical experience that Gigio feel, and this is I'm really glad that you find some power there, because it was the weapon I decided I had in comparison with all the great authors who wrote about this exactly the same moment of the life. The fact that he ignored for 12 years and a half the fact that he was bilingual. Because in the small place where he lived, being bilingual meant nothing. And in the same time, ignoring his English mother language was just like ignoring his mother role.
Yeah.
Because his mother was the Italian housemaid, the perfect, not willing, not the perfect wife and the perfect Italian mother. And she was Irish because she wanted to be that. And his son thought about that, about her just like a garden. A garden of the house. The house was father. And that summer, he would have discovered even the role of his mother. That
Yeah.
it was not being the Italian
No, and it
perfect
happens
house with.
in a few moments. We won't give away anything. Don't worry if you haven't read it yet. But one of the power of words, because he likes to, he has a secret game where he says words aloud, and if you say them aloud, maybe they exist. Maybe the exact thing you talk about exists. But also, he hears his mother cursing, saying vile words. That is a shock to him.
Yes.
Why is that so important? Because then she becomes a person and not only the perfect Italian mother, la mamma.
You know, there are two different verses that I don't quote. I quote other verses, Odin, but I don't quote these two verses that were my polar star. One is Paul Eluard saying, I translate in English, there is another world, but it is inside this world. And another one is Leonard Cohen in a song called Anthem. He says, there is a crack in everything.
That's how
The light gets in. And this is the moment in which
the light gets in.
the light and the other world. There is another world, but it is in this world. It's enough you put the ear against a wall, or you find yourself by chance under your mother, and your mother doesn't know you are there, and you discover another world. And there is a creek, and you can see something of the other world through the creek, but it is the light that hits you. This is the very essential point of his discovering the complexity of not being a child anymore.
Then there's another maybe important thing that happens, because all your novels are about I can't go on, I'll go on, inside a family. He's a child, of course. He's a child inside a family. He talks about this as an adult. He takes us through this story and he tells us, he always asks himself the same question. What if I had done it differently? Could I have changed the events? Is that what a child does? Keep on taking responsibility for things that happen? And what a difficult task that is.
What I understood after having lived inside two families, because the first one exploded, is that sons always are tempted to feel themselves responsible of what happens to their family. Always they think that probably they had part and they could act or behave differently to save the family, to save the marriage and the union between their father and mother. That's not true normally. But from the point of view of the son, it is a doubt they have, and it's really tough to face. At the same, he is avoiding to say what happened, because it will say it at the end. But he makes the question: could I change something? If I behaved differently, could I change? And he confesses that even overcoming the tragical part of the experience, he carried on this question for his long life, until the very moment when he found it, not the answer,
No.
but the right thinking about that. Yes, I could change, but nothing can guarantee that the changement was in better.
For better.
It could be in worse.
You say with some emphasis, it's always the boys that think that. Is it different for daughters? Because the character of his sister is such a beautiful character. You barely touch her throughout the novel, but she's there. Like genius. It's like she's there with all.
She protects him.
She protects everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the story, the
even.
novel,
Yeah.
and me.
Yeah. Is it different for girls? Why is she so wonderful?
If I have to say from my personal experience, I have 5 sons, 4 sons, and 1 daughter. And
She's your favorite?
no, she's different. She's more difficult. Yeah.
But in a nice way.
Male, I don't know you, but male teenagers, they are on off. You turn them on, okay. You turn them off, it's finished. That doesn't work with my daughter. You have a lot of little switches. You have to pay attention to everything because dots at the end of a message it's a tragedy. So I think that Gilda, in his childish, because at the age of the story he is 7, complexity. She is the genius protecting the story. And then when at the end of the story she rises again as a woman, you understand why. Because Gigio, will tell you what kind of protection she really exercised on everybody, on him in particular, who was the frère aîné. But of course, that doesn't mean anything when you have some superior mind, you know?
Like his sister.
Yeah, like Gilda is.
So we touched upon that he's bilingual, his mother is Irish. So there's also this role of the outsiders. His mom wants to be an Italian mom, but she is Irish. She has light skin, white skin with a lot of freckles, so has the sister. Problem in the sun in Italy. Big problem. They have to go inside because the skin turns purple. That was horrible to read. But this family is mirrored by the family with his object of desire, because the mother of his girlfriend Estelle has a black skin, and she has light skin. So they are each in their own way. They're outsiders, and they are regarded as outsiders. Why was that important to make them different than all the other beachgoers there?
Look, this is the only the assault of present time in this story set 50 years ago, because I think that there were not mixed couples in the bourgeoisie of the Italian economic boom time.
So you wanted to say something about today?
I wanted to say something about today. I wanted to say that racism in Italy was already there. I raised up thinking that we Italian, we were not racist. And blaming racism in America and South Africa, because I felt far from the roots of racism. But there was already a racism in Italy between northern, richer, and the southern immigrating to north. It was a racism. And there were places just like Turin, where if you go now, you find the belt of the popular buildings where thousands and thousands of southern Italian coming up to work to Fiat and Olivetti were put, and just to keep them far from the center, from the beauty town. But it seemed less serious than the racism against black people in America or in South Africa. But the reason is that there weren't black people in Italy at that time. Black people or Northern African people, not Chinese. Italy was autochthone at that time.
Italy was Italian.
It was Italian. So I put this, that it's not, somebody can tell me it is not, it's anachronistic. This is not true, because you couldn't find two particular couples just like that, close
Each under their umbrella.
each other. And I say, yes, that's true, because this is a novel, and I can do whatever I want.
Whatever you want.
And I wanted to put two particular couples, because I wanted to say that Italians were already racist. And in this case, he, the boy, discovered this. He felt something that didn't work when people were looking at her mother. But it was a different form of racism. It was a sexual racism, because her mother, the beauty of her mother was so exotic. And he understood that the glimpse of man to her mother lasted always some seconds more. But it was just like being racist against other Italians. You know, it seems to be not so serious. But he discovered that those people had glimpse to Astel's mother, who was black because she's Ethiopian, that were really just like she was an insult. She rich in a high social position, because they have the first umbrella in front of the sea, because her husband was rich. She was felt just like a provocation or an insult by women and men on holiday. I'm not sure that it was this way 50 years ago.
But you can choose.
Because there wasn't. But I'm sure, yes. I'm sure that we were already racist.
Yeah. Maybe I thought there was something else of the present you wanted to say, and that is, it is against the background, because you have this rupture in a family, this rupture from childhood to adolescence. But there's, in the bigger world, of course, what happens in Munich, in München in '72 during the Olympics, where Israeli competitors were killed. Is it a coincidence with what's happening now in the world that you take that specific event? You don't have to. You don't have to be political,
yes,
but just
it's strange to. I feel, as I told you, I don't even know how I thought about this story, because it was so fast. 3 hours, 3 hours driving. So I didn't have the time to understand and detect the reasons. I had the story, and it was before Ukrainian war, before October 7th. It was before, but just before. So I don't want to give to myself some sensitive power, but I was feeling something arriving, probably. I don't know. I didn't want to talk about what's happening now. I wanted to get away. But
look at what happened.
Yes, but it's another way of talking about what's happening, not having the intention of writing about that. So I don't know. I should answer no. It's a coincidence.
Okay.
But
the poet is a visionary, always, right?
Even the narrator. I'm not a poet.
Talking about the narrator and the character when he's an adult, Gigio, and he talks to us and he takes us through the story. Why do you emphasize, as a writer, that he is so average? Why was that important that he says that of himself? I'm just this. I'm not important. I'm just that. I didn't make it in life. I'm just an average man.
Yeah, because apart the great shock he had to face at the age of 12, and he shared it with his sister Gilda because they faced the same shock. Apart from this, he had another trouble to deal with. It was the superiority of his sister. His sister was an exceptional human being. So he had to find a pride of being a normal human being. It was the only way of loving her or of recognizing in her her wonderful, specifical talent, not being competition, accepting his normal condition. That means that he can still play chess. She was a champion at the age of 17, but being a champion and a master, she understood that she had to leave immediately, because otherwise her life would have been devoured, would have been really destroyed by chess. And she doesn't play anymore. So this is an advantage of being normal. He is quite, it's a relief for him, being normal and accepting being a normal man, not in any way not being exceptional. After having told that he discovers his talent as a translator at the age of 12 by translating Procol Harum for love. So he has a talent. But it is a normal talent in comparison with his sister. He had this second problem to solve. He had two. And this is the solution for him.
I think we managed to get through the conversation without spoiling anything, because it's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but I didn't say anything more than the voice of Gigio says during the 7/8 of nothing.
But did you
of nothing happened. It happens. It happened a lot of things for a 12 years old boy, but it's not the reason why he is telling the story.
But did you trust me with it? Did you think, oh no, she's not going to spoil it, is she?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I always trust people.
And nobody disappointed you?
No, because I trust people, but I know that people can make mistakes. So if
could have been possible, of course.
Yeah.
But it's also because the way you constructed the book, of course, you take me by the hand too.
Yeah, this can result a little, I don't know, probably you could be not comfortable of being taken by hand by a voice. There are people who don't want to be touched by the voice. So I thought, I tried to be kind and not overwhelming with this voice. I have to touch the reader sometimes, and if he don't want to be touched at that very moment, I will lose him probably. But you have to choose, just like between Bob Dylan and Elton John.
It's an easy choice. Thank you very much. So Mr. Veronesi will be signing books. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.